This is Jocko Podcast number 366 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. Good evening, Echo.
Good evening.
Also joining us tonight, Dave Berke. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening.
Dave happens to be kind of in San Diego right now, so here you are.
Hell yeah.
Leadership Strategy and Tactics. Wrote a book called Leadership Strategy and Tactics. And in that book, I talked about whether leaders are born or made. And the answer is, of course, both. People are born with certain characteristics that are beneficial for leadership, right? The ability to simplify things, the ability to detach, being articulate. These are all things that you can be born with various levels of. And thankfully, they're all things that you can improve, right? You can learn to simplify things. You can learn to detach. You can learn to become more articulate. It's not easy. And some people can learn more easily how to simplify things. Some people can learn more easily how to detach. Some people have a really hard time with it. There's some things that you can't improve, right? I know in the book I use the example of being able to speak loudly, because being able to speak loudly in combat is beneficial. And even if you're trying to get, you've got an event going on and you got to get everyone to move to a different room, it's good to have a loud voice, and a loud voice is a genetic thing, and sure, you could train it a little bit, but some people can only talk so loud. It's genetic in my family. It's loud at my house. A bunch of loud people. So it's a genetic trait. So everyone's got some level of inherent leadership capability. And when you have some kind of a lack, like if you don't have a loud voice, cool, you get someone on your team that does. And there are some natural leaders out there, right? And I don't know how. Look, natural leadership means that they might have some better characteristics, but what it really means is that they're humble, and throughout their lives, they've developed themselves over time, right? Some people have very little leadership natural ability, and then you have everyone in between. I mean, there's some people that they didn't get the positive leadership characteristics, and they might be really awesome at other things, right? They might be a great athlete, right? How many great athletes are there that weren't great coaches? There's a lot of them. In fact, some of them are actually bad coaches. They were a great player, but they're a bad coach. They have great skills, athletic skills, great ability to have great peripheral vision. They had great skills for athletics, but they didn't have a great leadership capability. And maybe they never developed it. I imagine if you're like the best ball player, you can end up with a pretty big ego. Maybe you don't need to listen to a bunch of people, so maybe you don't end up being the best leader. But leadership is what drives the success of an organization. So the question is, how do you develop leaders? And we talk about it all the time. We do it. Dave and I do it for a living. We develop leaders. We teach leaders. We train them, mentor them. We put them in leadership positions, put people in leadership positions. We coach them. We have developed those programs inside of organizations, all very hands-on. So how do you train leaders if you're in an organization that has hundreds of thousands of people? Obviously, you're going to use decentralized command, right? Because you, as the leader in charge of a couple 100,000 people, you're not going to be able to train everyone yourself. So you have to use decentralized command so that the training and the mentoring and the coaching is going to take place at the subordinate levels. But then if you have a few 100,000 people in your organization, how do you set a baseline of knowledge that's going to drive the leadership training and drive a leadership culture inside your organization? Well, a couple months ago, Dave handed me a manual, and the manual is called, it's from the Marine Corps. I know it's a big shocker coming from Dave Berke handing me a manual. It's called The Fundamentals of Marine Corps Leadership. And for all practical purposes, it's a correspondence course, which is kind of a joke in the military, right? In the military, it's like, you went to BUDS through the correspondence course, meaning you just, filled out some paperwork and then you graduated, or you went to flight school. What'd you do? Correspondence course to get through this? But correspondence course, it's a real thing. It's something that is necessary. You have to be able to educate people remotely. And now it's a lot easier to do that, right? because now we have online training and everyone does online training. It's advanced a lot. We have the Extreme Ownership Academy, and we've got a whole new platform rolling out with that. What date does that come out? What date's the new platform?
January 1.
Oh my goodness.
It's happening.
Oh, so this will be live. So we have a new platform with that, and even, when Leif and I first started talking about having an online training platform, both of us, and I think Leif more so, because I had seen some other possibilities. Leif was just thinking about what we had, in the Navy, these online trainings that you had to take. They were super boring, super not user-friendly, and it didn't seem like a viable option. Of course, COVID hit, and all of a sudden everyone's online. Everyone understood the benefits. And so luckily we had kind of started the academy now, and then we went hard on it. And now we've got an outstanding the new one is all outstanding.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I was pretty impressed. I was extremely, I couldn't have been more impressed. So we've got the Extreme Ownership Academy. But before that was available, things like this manual were out. And the manual's dated October of 2000. So there wasn't really a big online training capability. And also, this is something to think about. This is before the war kicked off. So there's sometimes as I read through this manual that I was like, we've been at peace for a while, haven't we? Because war teaches and reteaches lessons unlike any other instructor. And you'll see some of those. So anyways, that being said, there's a bunch of good lessons and reminders about leadership, and I want to talk through some of those today. And also put this up as kind of an example of the type of program you can put in place if you're running a large organization or if you're running a small organization. How often do we talk to clients that have 40 people, but they got a decent churn rate, a little higher than they want. They got new people checking in all the time, or like you get a medical staff, let's say. Medical staff, you got professionals, but they might work with a different team for 3 days and then not see that team again. There's certain environments where you're going to have a rapid turnover. So it's nice to realize that you can set up a standard operating procedure that you can give people some level of baseline knowledge very quickly, and you could move forward as a unified team if you have a good plan around it. And this is sort of an example of that. So I also really appreciate the Marine Corps because they have an ability to speak to their audience in a way that can be pretty transformational. So a young Marine stopped by the gym today, just out of boot camp, and you're looking at him, yep, 100%. As soon as I saw him, I was like, yep, this kid just graduated from Marine Corps boot camp. He's standing at attention waiting to talk to me. I'm like, check. He's like, good afternoon, sir. Yep. Good afternoon. When did you graduate from boot camp? 4 days ago. Outstanding, So the Marine Corps gets that job done. So let's go to this book, The Fundamentals of Marine Corps Leadership. It starts off by saying congratulations, which is a really, again, they're getting in your brain right away. Congratulations on your enrollment in a distance education course from the Distance Learning and Technologies Department of the Marine Corps Institute since 1920. Heritage. Since 1920, the Marine Corps Institute has been helping tens of thousands of hard-charging Marines. What kind of Marine are you? I'm a hard-charger. You got this book. You're already a hard-charger. You're already in the game. Like you, to improve their technical job performance skills through distance learning. By enrolling in this course, you have shown a desire to improve the skills you have and master new skills to enhance your job performance. Boom. So you can see how they're coming out of the gate. And then it says your personal characteristics. This isn't a question, by the way. It's not a survey about your personal characteristics. It's saying your personal characteristics. You are properly motivated. You have made a positive decision to get training on your own. Self-motivation is perhaps the most important force in learning or achieving anything. Doing whatever is necessary to learn is motivation. You have it. This is outstanding. You seek to improve yourself. You are enrolled to improve those skills you already possess and learn new skills. When you improve yourself, you improve the Corps. Listen, you, Lance Corporal Schmuckatelli, you are helping the entire Marine Corps right now by reading this book, by going through these procedures. And we thank you for it. You have the initiative to act. Of course, the Marine Corps is always trying to get you to take initiative. By acting on your own, you have shown you are a self-starter, willing to reach out for opportunities to learn and grow. You accept challenges. This is like the affirmations that people say, but they're saying it to you. You have self-confidence and believe in your ability. And by the way, it's all true. Like, these are all factual things. You have the self-confidence and believe in your ability to acquire knowledge and skills. You have self-confidence to set goals and the ability to achieve them, enabling you to meet every challenge. You are able to set and accomplish practical goals. You are willing to commit time, effort, and the resources necessary to set and accomplish your goals. These professional traits will help you successfully complete this long-distance learning course. And then it goes on. I could read the entire thing and just, we could just sell an audiobook, right? Sure. Just get fired up. But then it talks about how to begin the course, and it tells you how to do it. It's like, leaf through the text and do an assessment of the different phases and then study the first unit. It tells you how to study. Because, look, a lot of these kids, if you're enlisted in the Marine Corps, you may or may not have paid attention to one class in your entire high school, right? And then you're preparing for the final exam. And it gives you these unused minutes. Apply what you have learned. Use the shakedown cruise technique. Ask another Marine to lend a hand by asking questions about the course. Choose a particular study unit and let your buddy fire away. This technique can be interesting and challenging for both of you. If you followed what the Marine Corps told you to do, you'd be an outstanding Marine. The sooner you complete your course, the sooner you can better yourself by applying what you learned. However, you have 2 years from the date of enrollment to complete this course. I hope it doesn't take somebody 2 years to complete this. Graduating. As a graduate of this distance education course and as a dedicated Marine, your job performance skills will improve, benefiting you, your unit, and the Marine Corps. Semper Fidelis. So that's the intro. They're coming out of the gate hard. They're getting right in your head. Like 18-year-old Jocko, I'm ready to rock it. I'm ready to do some correspondence courses, bro. Now, here's the thing. This is what you got to watch out for. How does this sound? It depends on who is reading it, right? So you could look at this thing. If you got did you ever have like a slang term for Marines that were just, they didn't want to be there?
Yeah, I'm thinking like strap hangers and some other terms. But there's probably some more derogatory ones that I'm blanking on right now. But yes, there were definitely terms. I just can't think of it.
Yeah, just somebody with like a negative mindset.
Yeah. Yes.
You could take, the last podcast that we did, we talked about building a palace or building a lean-to. You could read this and be like, dude, this is such a load of shit. You could totally do that. Like, I could do it right now. We could go back through this thing. And I could laugh at it, right? Totally. It could be like, congratulations on your enrollment in distance education course. Since 1920, the Marine Corps Institute has helped tens of thousands of hard-charging you know what I mean? Like, you see what I'm doing?
Totally. Yes, I do see that. Yeah.
Man, Jamie got a client from an email the other day, and she was mad about it. And I was like, because she doesn't have there's like a little issue with the client, and she's working through it. And I'm like, so she read me the email. She's like, can you help me with this email? It's bad. And so she read it to me, and the tone that she read it was like super negative. And I go, cool. I go, read that again and pretend that it's an email from me. And she just went quiet. Because what the email said was like, hey, we want to adjust some dates on this thing. But it was like, the way she read it was like, hey, we need to adjust the dates. I was like, whoa, girl. So you got to kind of, you're gonna read it the way you want to hear it. So why not build a palace instead of a lean-to? Yeah. Why not turn this thing into something awesome? That's my recommendation. So lesson 1. And the way this thing's laid out, it's like got the lesson plan, got the learning objectives, just like sort of normal military stuff. It starts off placement and purpose of the Marine NCO in the chain of command. The chain of command is the system the Marine Corps uses to ensure that each Marine receives instructions for a particular task from only one supervisor. Each immediate supervisor in turn receives instructions from his or her immediate supervisor. This process continues up to the commandant of the Marine Corps. In this way, each supervisor is a link in the chain of command from the commandant to each Marine. That's like a, they might as well put the president in there, that the president of the United States is in there too. They should throw him in there, except for the fact that look, you don't really care. Hey, man, I work for the Commandant. Never mind anybody else, bro. I work for the Commandant of the Marine Corps. That's where I'm at. This chain serves two purposes. The first of these purposes is to decentralize authority. Since it is impossible for one person to assign duties to every Marine or to supervise every task personally, assignments are passed down through the levels of command. This is called decentralization of authority. For example, the mess officer tells the chief cook what foods to prepare for a meal. The chief cook then tells the section cook, who in turn tells the other cooks. Whenever duties are assigned to a subordinate, that subordinate must be given the authority to accomplish those duties. The subordinate is held responsible for accomplishing the assigned task, but overall responsibility for its success remains with the Marine originating the order. This is a horrible example. And there's a couple reasons why. Number one, it's talking about cooks, and we don't want to hear about cooks, right? Not that logistics don't win war, because they certainly do, and not that I don't love the people that make food for me when I'm in the military. But that's not really what makes it a bad example. It's actually good that they're given some various things, but here's the thing. The mess officer tells the chief cook what foods to prepare for a meal, right? That is wrong. The mess officer should be saying, hey, this is how many people we have to feed. Make it happen.
Yeah. He could be like, hey, this is all we were able to get from headquarters supply. This is the, he shouldn't tell him anything other than what he needs to get done and what he's got available to make that happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just literally wrote down, I was showing, I literally wrote down the word tell with a question mark. Like, don't do that.
Yep. And really, then the chief cook should be like, hey guys, here's how many people we got to feed. What do you guys think we should make? And let the troops decide. This is authoritarian leadership, and it's not the best way to lead. So watch out for that. Just watch out for that. Besides the decentralization of authority, another purpose of the chain of command is to link different levels of command. It is a way that the infantry private can talk to his battalion commander. The private first goes through his fire team leader with a problem. If the problem cannot be solved by his fire team leader, he's sent to squad leader, then the platoon sergeant, then the platoon commander, and finally the company commander. If the problem cannot be solved by any of these Marines after they are seen in order of their authority, the private is sent to the battalion commander. Any Marine can go as high as necessary to get the problem solved. All that the Marine must do is follow the chain of command one step at a time. A Marine does not have to disclose the subject of a request massed to anyone in the chain of command except the commander with whom he is requesting the mass. This was always like a big threat of requesting mass. Did you guys hear that threat?
Oh, yeah.
What would make a guy want to request mass?
Usually the sense of being wronged or something like that. Listen, I obviously knew what requesting mass was, and at some point in my career, I was going to be the person that they were going to be requesting mass.
Did you ever have one?
Dude, it never happened.
Wait, what is it? What is request?
It's basically like, and I know Jocko could add to it, but like you want to make sure Marines understand that they do have the latitude that if somehow that there's some misconduct occurring in their chain of command, they can go up the chain to the right authority to have their grievance aired, their concern articulated to the boss, so somebody isn't getting in the way. Mm-hmm. So you can go up through the chain, and I can actually skip my boss. It's rudimentary in this example, but I can skip my boss and go to the big boss if I need to request mass. And like he was describing, it can almost be like he used like a threat or like I'm going to request mass.
Is that captain's mass?
No, that's
something
different.
else. Okay.
Captain's mass is that's in the other direction.
Yeah.
That's like echo. You did something dumb and you lost equipment, or you did something dumb, got in trouble. Now you're going to captain's mass.
Oh, okay. So it's like, okay, got it.
But this one is like, I'm in an argument with Dave. Dave is my boss, and I think Dave's making us do a dumb plan, and I could literally say, I'm requesting captain's mass. I'm requesting mast.
I'd be like, Jocko, you're not on duty tomorrow, but you're going to come in, and it's like Christmas Day or something. And you're like, no, I'm not on duty, and I don't have to do that. And like, this is the duty roster, and I have the day off. I'm like, nope, you're coming in. And he, in theory, could be like, I'm going to go over your head, and I'm going to go to the boss and say like, hey, I think he's treating me unfairly, and that way he's not a victim by my really awful leadership of making him do something that's dumb or not fair.
So it's like it is an official like what do you call protocol to go above the chain. That's or whatever.
That's it.
Interesting.
Oft discussed, rarely executed.
When we had that mutiny, that was kind of like that. It wasn't quite official but we were like, hey, we want to talk to the skipper, and we went and talked to the skipper, but it wasn't like we didn't have to go the full. There was another time there was almost like a request mast scenario that someone was talking about, but I don't remember what it was. All right. Purpose of the Marine NCO in the chain of command. The Marine NCO, non-commissioned officer, is the lowest rank link in the chain of command. The first purpose of that link is to carry the orders and information passed from the NCO's immediate supervisor to the NCO's subordinates and pass requests from the Marines up the chain of command. And let me give you a little hint, everybody. You're going to be translating what is said down the chain of command and translating what is said back up the chain of command. So if I'm working for Dave and Echo works for me and Echo says, this is the dumbest thing we've ever done, I say, hey, sir, we'd like to reconsider the approach that we're taking. And when Dave says, tell those guys to shut up and do what I told them to do, I say, hey, Echo, I did brief the skipper about this, and we're going to go ahead. We want to proceed with what we've been directed to do. So you're going to do translation. And your translation, you're actually buffering the friction that's going to be there, because it's definitely going to be there. In this manner, the NCO is a link between Marine subordinates and their commanding officer. As this link, the NCO is responsible for enforcing the orders and commands of the commanding officer. The NCO accomplishes this by assigning tasks and then supervising work. That's what, I mentioned that this is coming out in the year 2000, and you can see and we're going to get to some part where they go more decentralized. And they're using the term decentralized, but what we're reading is not decentralized. This is orders and execution and following duties, right? That's the way this reads. And again, this is aimed at a very low rank. It's written in here somewhere, but this is aimed at like corporals and lance corporals, like E1s, E2s, E3s, maybe E4s. So,
yeah. And I didn't read that opening piece, but when I hear NCO in the Marine Corps, a corporal in the Marine Corps is an NCO. That's actually not common across. So I see this as a way to teach enlisted Marines, E1, E2, E3, private first class lance corporal, how to one day become an NCO.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing this like, man, this is rudimentary. It's almost like they're doing it on purpose. Like they're describing decentralized command in a way that's actually not decentralized command because it's so rudimentary.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell people what to do. But I go, okay, I think what they're trying to explain is like this is how it works in the chain of command. It's really low level in the way that it's described.
When a subordinate is given a task to supervise, the NCO must also give the Marine enough authority to accomplish the task, but overall responsibility remains with the NCO. Remember, and here's a great point, as a supervisor in the Marines or civilian life, you can delegate authority, but you can never delegate responsibility. And this is something we talk about, giving ownership. When I give ownership to Dave to go and accomplish a project and he messes it up, I still own the failure. So a second purpose of the Marine NCO is to train Marines to perform their assigned tasks. This training, usually in the Marines MOS, is a combination of on-the-job training and classroom instruction. The Marine NCO must be able to demonstrate and teach. More important, he must inspire the Marines, making them want to learn the skills he's expected to master, or they're expected to master. And the third purpose is to ensure close supervision and personal guidance of junior Marines. And this part disturbed me. Without a supervising NCO, many tasks would not be finished properly, if at all. The personal guidance provides a junior Marine with someone else to turn to with help for personal problems or for answers. So we don't like that. We, meaning me. I don't know if you do. I don't like it.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
So you don't want to have a group of people who, unless they are supervised closely, they don't do things right. That means I'm failing in like 19 different ways as a leader. So that's not our goal. Our goal is not to just have everything so supervised that it gets done. Because if we're supervising that closely, well, then we're too close to the problem and we aren't seeing the other things. We're not seeing the big picture. And by the way, why do we have troops that aren't doing what they're supposed to do? So if you're a leader in an organization, if you're working at a company, and the only way things get done properly is if they are being strictly supervised, this is a horrible sign. You need to start going down the path of giving more ownership, giving more autonomy, giving people parameters, giving them mission type orders, which means telling them what needs to get done, why it needs to get done, but not how to do it. That's what we're going to go for.
Yeah, you said it already, and I was thinking about this the concept of decentralized command and how it's different from I tell you, you tell your subordinate, you tell your, like, that is not decentralized command. That's the direction in which the things flow in the chain of command, if you want to use that from a hierarchy. But I can't help but think about the timing of this, like October of 2000.
Yeah.
Like that's like 9-10, that's like right before 9/11. And before that was like Desert Storm, which, listen, Desert Storm was legit, but it was like 4 days long. Like, and so you have an era here. And what I wrote down is like DC works, decentralized command works, but it doesn't become it doesn't reveal the necessity of it until you're in an environment by which nothing else will work other than decentralized command. And in Garrison, you can kind of power your way through. You can still micromanage and chain of command lead in Garrison. And if you spend a career in Garrison, what they're describing, and this is not to defend it, like you said it well, like we don't want to do this. But unless you've been in a situation like combat, like, oh crap, the only way we will be successful is if we have real decentralized command, mission type orders. Jocko goes and makes things happen because all he knows is the outcome, and I can't help him with anything else because he's off doing his thing. You don't understand how, not just how important it is, but how it actually works. And there's these little pieces of like Garrison leadership inside there. Even it's like, oh, that's the wrong word. Don't use that word. It's the wrong word. Yeah. And without the context of knowing when and how it works, and I know it's kind of like arrogant to say the real world, but I'll talk about combat. Without that, you are going to use the words that they're using, and they're not the right words. Mm-hmm.
The Psychology of Military Incompetence. Like, that book was so spot on, and it was able to capture sort of the things that I always thought about. But the fact that in the Garrison environment, you can totally micromanage. Like, it's like if you work at a restaurant and you only have, like, you've got 10 tables, and hey, here's the rules at our restaurant. Only 5 tables are going to be filled at a time. We've got 5 tables. We actually have 5 waiters, and we've got 5 cooks. And boom, the waiter's going to talk to that cook, and okay, cool. Yep. Hey, you give them what they need. Yep. Everything's like, you micromanage everything. You can, hey, bring them their bread. Bring the table that bread. You can do it. Did they get their drinks? You can micromanage everything in a restaurant that has 5 tables, 5 waiters, and 5 cooks, because everything is going to work. And even when someone says, hey, can I get extra onions? You're like, nope, that's not on the menu. You can't get that. Now, if you go to a real restaurant, like a big restaurant, there's a bunch of different people in there, like, those waiters are going to have to make some decisions. The cooks are going to be like, all right, we're going to get this done. Hey, run over to Vaughn's and grab some extra milk, because like, that stuff's got to happen. People got to make decisions. So in the Garrison environment, you can micromanage things, but as soon as you get into a dynamic environment, as soon as you get into a combat environment, you have to use decentralized command 100%. And in any organization that's going to progress, you have to use decentralized command. So yes, if you work at a completely controlled environment, you can micromanage. It's not going to be as efficient, but it is a feasible thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as efficient, but it's going to be a feasible thing. As soon as you get to any kind of dynamic environment, you're going to fall apart if you try and micromanage everything. Just the way things work. All right. 4 areas of NCO responsibility. Your country. 1 responsibility as a Marine NCO to your country is to demonstrate behavior that dignifies the United States of America and the American people. For example, when you are in a foreign country, conduct yourself in such a way that the people of that country will not be offended. Convey the feeling that you are an ally and are in their country as a guest, friend, and protector of freedom. Not every Marine read that section when I was in the SEAL teams in the 1990s on ships with the Marines pulling into port. The Marine Corps. As a Marine NCO, it is your duty to be loyal to the Marine Corps policies. You have a responsibility to develop leadership skills, professional knowledge, and proficiency. You develop this skill, knowledge, and proficiency through on-the-job experience, reading, taking correspondence courses, attending service schools, and by seeking new tasks. You also have the responsibility of presenting a favorable image of the United States Marines to both public and our sister services. Community activity and friendly inter-service competitions are ways of presenting a favorable image. Check. Organization, your responsibilities to your own organization are many. One important responsibility is training Marines as a team and developing that team's loyalties. And it says here, to achieve good teamwork, a unit must show unhesitating response to orders and regulations. You accomplish this by demanding discipline within your unit and by taking responsibility at all times for the conduct of your Marines. So they're going hard in the paint for the garrison life.
Yeah.
You're bummed out you gave me this book, aren't you?
No, I think it's awesome because I'm like, I can't help but say, like, I know what you're trying to say. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm telling myself. I'm like, I hear what you're saying. I know what you're trying to say. And so inside that, and you do a good job, like you can pull out the components of like, this is really what you need to be doing. Yep. And so words like demanding, we're not going to say that. But in the end, I go, I know what they're getting at. So I think it's actually a really cool exercise to go through this and other things and actually look and go, hey, this is what they're talking about here. This is a better way to do that, or this is a way to pull out what the lesson could be, even though it's not explained very well or not written very well. And then the other side is like, it'd be better if they just said it differently. Instead of like, this book is awesome and everything's perfect in here, which is not.
Well, the crazy thing is we've covered so many Marine Corps manuals where they literally are perfect. I mean, you read warfighting and it's just like, okay, yep, this is
totally.
Don't change a word. And as a matter of fact, embrace this and put it into every aspect of your life.
Yeah, and maybe the thing about this, and dude, we always talk about this. We always try to picture the room of the people that are like in here writing this and who these people are. I wonder if they like, it's almost like you fall into the trap of like, oh, these young Marines, they need to have it explained to them at some, and it's like, no, like you don't need to do that quite so much. Like I almost feel like they fell in the trap of, oh, these kids are so young, they're so uneducated, they're so inexperienced. We have to make this so rudimentary that they actually don't do it correctly, as opposed like, no, we need to explain this the way you'd explain it to anybody, whether you're the CEO of a giant company. Now, is there differences? Sure, depending on your layer of leadership, but it's almost like they make it too narrow because they maybe don't think the audience would understand it.
Well, I'm going to go one step further. I think you're right where they're like, hey, we're telling these guys what they need to do is shut up and unhesitatingly follow all orders.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Like, you're going to get told what to do and you should do it immediately.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
That's literally what it says. Unhesitating response to orders and regulations. Like, that's what it's saying. Now, listen, is there an element of that in any organization? Sure.
Yeah.
However, unhesitatingly, what we're getting at is I'm not going to question anything that I'm told. And this is the last thing I actually want.
Totally.
And if I'm dealing with a brand new guy that doesn't know anything, I still want him to go, hold on, sir, can you explain to me why we're doing it this way? Because I want him to know that.
Yeah. And they don't reveal the fact there's a balance in any of this or dichotomy, because there's actually examples you give where you're like, hey, do this. And actually you need your people to respond right away. And when they don't, you need to realize, oh, damn, they know something I don't know. And there's a reason they're not doing it unhesitatingly. So even inside that, there's a balance and a dichotomy that's just not revealed. So you're going to read and go, whatever the word, do exactly what I say when I say it. And like, I know what you're saying, but that's not right. Like, that's not what you...
What podcast did we talk about Colonel Pogue? What were you doing?
It was one of those Marine Corps, I believe it was one of those manuals, and we were picturing...
Like there was one guy kept throwing in a sentence.
And like it was like the last paragraph of each section. It was all these awesome paragraphs, and this one you're like, that sucks. That's not right. And you pictured like that guy in charge was Colonel Pogue, who took all like his junior Marines' awesome writing, and he's like, I'm going to make sure they also know at the end, the person in charge still gets to do what he wants to do, or some garbage like that. And it was that, I don't remember which one it was, that Colonel Pogue.
Yeah. And if you don't know what a pogue is, that's a slang military term for like the rear echelon person that's all authoritarian leadership style and never does anything real. That's the Pogue. And speaking of Colonel Pogue, unit courtesy is clearly related to the unit's discipline and cooperation. An example of unit courtesy is coming to attention for an officer. This is like, this is so pre 9/11. Unit courtesy has a special and practical use. Often instructions for a mission must be given in noisy surroundings. Time and effort are saved if the commander has the attention of all Marines at once rather than waiting for Marines to be quiet. The officers should not be expected to shout over the voices of the Marines and compete with surrounding noise too. So, like, you see, they put a nice little element of truth in there. Like, you're kind of like, yeah, but you're like thinking,
It's like telling and there is. I am a believer that there is truth that being a good follower is get you on the path of being a good leader. Like, being a good follower is important, and there's just this overarching piece of how to be a follower is like the foundation of this. Like, when Colonel Burke walks in, you better stand at attention. Like, roger that. Like, I know what you're saying, but yeah, that followership in there is like, this blind obedience is not what you want from your people.
When the skipper when we'd be getting ready to do, like, at SEAL Team 1, when I got to SEAL Team 1, and the skipper would come and talk to everyone, like, we'd all be in the classroom. And when the skipper would walk in, they'd say, feet. That's what they'd say. Did they say that to you guys?
Tension on deck.
Yeah, but they'd say feet. I always like that because it was a big change from, you go to boot camp and it's attention on deck, attention on deck. And you get to SEAL Team 1 and I'm young Jocko and they're like, you're all standing by and he comes in and you're like, feet. And you're just like, boom. And you're like, yeah. I was motivated by some weird stuff when I was younger. Developing unit loyalty is another of your responsibilities to your organization. Just as you must ensure loyalty toward Marine Corps policies, you must ensure your Marines have loyalty toward the organization's policies. It's kind of strange to be talking about policies like in this book at this juncture. I don't know. Like, let's talk about combat, people. Yeah. Let's talk about every Marine's a rifleman.
And belief in the mission.
Yes.
Yeah. I think,
and taking care of your brothers.
Like, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mean take care of your fellow Marine? Is that what you mean here?
Totally.
Is that what you mean by if unit PT is required, this is how you know. If unit PT is required, you must conduct real PT session. You can't just go through the motions. Making each assigned task as interesting as possible and doing each task enthusiastically will help develop your unit loyalty. Okay, we'll give it to them. Subordinates. As a Marine NCO, you have certain responsibilities to your subordinates. It's a qualifier of certain, right? You have certain responsibilities to subordinates. Actually, you're 100% responsible to your subordinates. You must train subordinates in their MOS to develop the proficiency and skills the Marine Corps needs. Often proficiency in MOS means life and death, either to the individual Marine or to another Marine. You must educate your subordinates in the military skills and encourage individual self-improvement. You must be aware of educational opportunities and the unit's policies to know where to direct Marines desiring aid. Cool. They want to educate their Marines. This is when you invest in your people, when you're working at a bank and you got a teller and you're like, hey, we can pay for your, to get your CPA and you can become a financial advisor. Like, when you set people up and you invest in them, you want to talk about developing loyalty. That's how you develop loyalty. You take care of your people. Invest in their education. Give them more opportunity. Talk to them about what it's going to get them promoted. It says here, perhaps the most important of the responsibilities of the NCO towards subordinates is taking care of their physical needs. These needs include quarters and food. You have no control over billeting, which is an interesting thing to say. You have no control over billeting. Okay. But you can ensure that the assigned areas are as good as the situation allows. By enforcing high standards of police cleanliness and discipline, you can make the quarters as comfortable as possible. As with billeting, you have no control over food preparation. But by ensuring that the Marines are on time for meals and in proper uniform, you can make meals more pleasant. Oh my God. I'm starting to lose it, dude. I'm starting to lose it. Well, here's one thing that's crazy to me. I get it, man. You have no control. That right there, I don't think I've ever told a person in my life, you have no control over this particular thing, right? I don't think I've ever told. I certainly would never teach a group of individual human beings, you have no control over your building. I was like, oh, wait a second. What are you talking about? We don't like where we live? Okay, well, what can we do to fix it? What can we do to make it better? Well, let's get together and explain what the shortfalls are so we can pass up the chain of command so we can get some improvements. We want, to get this the sink in the bathroom to stop dripping. Cool. I'll do that maintenance myself. Like what? You have no control over what you eat? Really? You have no control over what you eat. Like maybe today, but if I'm going to live here and I'm in this chow hall and you don't think that I can raise problems and get things fixed and adjusted and moved, please don't tell me I have no control over something. There you go. I'm firing up a bunch of Marines right now. We're getting fired up. This is the first time the Marine Corps at large is going to be mad at me. Everyone's going to be going to the chow hall like, we want steak. Semper Fi, brothers, you deserve steak. In the field, you will be the last one to eat. Check. You can take care of your Marines' needs by ensuring that all problems such as those in quarters, maintenance, food quality, and food quantity are brought to the attention of immediate supervisors. So you have control. Come on. Marines, like everybody else, need relaxation. Recreation time is made available for all Marines. Organizational sports and unit get-togethers are ways of letting Marines relax mentally and physically. You must ensure that Marines get their fair share of liberty. This responsibility to your subordinate Marines is as of such importance that it will be discussed in a later separate lesson. Before you can expect the most of your subordinate Marines, you must ensure their well-being. Take care of your team and they will take care of you. Take care of your people and they will take care of you. Mayhem out there. Importance of leadership. Why'd you hand me this manual? Just to make me like frustrated? It sounds worse. Sometimes I've told both of you guys, like I'll read a book, like especially early on when I'd read a book for the podcast, and it first happened with The Forgotten Highlander. I was reading that book and I was like, damn, this is a pretty heavy book. But when I read it out loud, it was so amplified in my head. It was so much more emotional and so much more harsh. When I was reading this a few days ago, I read it on a plane, and I was like, that's kind of funny, but now it's like actually cracking me up. Check. All right, leadership in general. Importance of leadership. Why is leadership so important? The answer to this question is simple. Without leadership, nothing requiring teamwork can be accomplished. Check. Before you can talk effectively about leadership, you must know what leadership means. There are almost as many definitions of leadership as there are leaders. The definition that combines all the ideas is simply this: the sum of those qualities of intellect, human understanding, and moral character that enables a person to inspire and control a group of people successfully.
Can we come up with a different word than control?
Maybe. Just maybe we could use the word influence.
Yeah.
But they use the word control.
Totally.
Yeah. So again, we're talking garrison mindset. Like, I'm going to get my waiters to do exactly what I tell them to do because I have control over everything and I can control them. Not a good sign.
It's so funny, man.
Yep.
I don't remember the exact saying, but there's like this metaphor of like when someone's sort of in the right area but off the mark, they'll say something like, and I wish I could remember it like you did in the reference. You're shooting on the right target, which means I'm
on paper.
I'm shooting, yeah, but I'm missing the mark or whatever. It's like if I'm way off, I'm like shooting on somebody else's target. Like that's a real problem. So I can't help but like. I know what you're sort of in the right, like you're pointing to the right place, but you're hitting all over you're not off the target,
right? But
you are off the mark. Like
we would say in the teams, like you're on paper, meaning like there's a bullseye that's a little black thing, and then there's like rings around it.
Yes,
you're not in the rings, but there's a broader, like big giant piece of paper at the butts at Camp Pendleton or at an island, and it's like okay, you're on paper. I mean, you're hitting it.
Yeah.
You're off the mark.
Yeah, you have shooting on the right target, which just means like if Echo's like shooting at someone else's target, like okay, we need this is a whole different problem. Yeah. But I just like you are not hitting the target, but you're on the. I know what you're trying to say, but they're
on paper, but they got got to make some adjustments here.
And that difference is 20 years of war. It's like
and that difference on being on paper versus that's a kill shot versus not, you're all going to die because you can't shoot straight.
Totally, man. Crazy.
Elements of leadership. And you know what's funny is you're going to see, we're not going to cover this whole manual, but you're going to see when they get back to sort of fundamentals, it seems like they're trying to explore new territory here. That's what it seems like to me.
You can almost picture like, hey, go back and come up with, like the best example you can.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. I remember this time when I was like the mess hall, like they're not remembering Ramadi or Fallujah or Baghdad, or they're remembering cooking or which is fine. But that's all they have in their repository to come out of like, oh, the scenarios that they want to use to illustrate these examples. They don't have the examples.
Yep. And here's the problem with those examples. The problem isn't the example of being logisticians in the Marine Corps and cooking in the Marine Corps. God bless you. And in the Navy. God bless you. The problem is they're not the dynamic situations that demand the type of leadership that we know to be effective. So it just doesn't work as well. If you are cooking in a combat environment and you're talking about how these people need to make decisions on what they're going to put forward, like those are things that's decentralized command. Is the only way it's going to work.
How are you going to get food to four platoons are in 4 different locations right now?
Right.
Doing like crazy 24/7 operating. Yeah, totally.
Elements of leadership. This definition does not mention the military because leadership is not exclusive to the military. We concur. Leadership is necessary wherever 2 or more people get together to perform a common task. Check. The leader's primary purpose is to ensure that the job is done, or in the words of the military, that the mission is accomplished. 3 essential elements are needed to perform the role of a leader. The leader is the first essential element. The second element in leadership is the group. And the third is the situation. And I'm not going to cover this because, again, this is something that I'd never seen before, and it seemed like maybe somebody had an idea. And the idea is that for leadership to happen, there has to be a leader, there has to be a group, and there has to be a situation, and that's what leadership is. So I get it, but we're not going to spend a bunch of time on it. The objective of military leadership. The United States military has the mission of keeping our country free. To accomplish this mission, strong military leadership is essential. Marines are all potential leaders, and military leadership should be important to everyone. The objective or goal of military leadership is the creation and maintenance of an organization which will loyally and willingly accomplish any reasonable task assigned or indicated, and will initiate suitable action in the absence of orders. So, what's interesting is it's interesting that it says the goal of military leadership, and it doesn't really say anything about war and combat. That's number one. Because that's what the military is for, by the way, is for war and combat. And it can do a bunch of other things as well, and it does. Here's another thing. Loyally and willingly accomplish any reasonable task. You know what that should be? It should be legal task, right? Because we want to make sure that people are doing things that are within the code of conduct, within the law of land warfare. And then they get it right at the end, which is suitable action in the absence of orders. That's like the tiniest sliver of what we want.
Yeah. Even in the beginning, like I think it said something like all Marines are potential leaders. Like, stop. All Marines are leaders.
Yeah.
Just as something as
Marines
simple as
are all potential leaders.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
everybody leads.
Every Marine is a leader.
Yes.
Every one of you.
Yes.
Yeah. Totally.
Just like you said, they're on paper.
They're on the paper.
We get what you're saying.
Yeah.
We hear what you're saying. 3 reasons for military leadership. The first reason is the coordination of people and activities within a unit. That is getting the right people to do the right job. Okay, that's good. Without such coordination, capable people will not be assigned the right tasks. Okay. Second reason for military leadership is to hold a military unit together. A military unit is made up of people organized to accomplish a mission that requires the successful completion of a series of tasks. When the unit is deployed, a number of set tasks must be assigned and completed. Again, it's all top down. This is the top down manual. The unit must be inspected to ensure readiness. Training schedules must be prepared and logistics plans must be made up. Because it would be difficult for one leader to do all things alone, unit leaders are needed. Okay, so we want a little decentralized command. Thank you. In the Marine Corps, these unit leaders form a chain of command from the commandant on down to the smallest unit. So third reason for military leadership is to ensure a unit's success. The unit achieves success by accomplishing the assigned mission. Through demonstration, motivation, and hard work, leaders ensure that all missions are accomplished. A leader's failure to ensure that subordinates accomplish their task leads to the failure of a unit to accomplish its mission, and thus failure of the military service in carrying out a larger mission. And if the military service fails, our country and way of life are in danger. Okay. Somebody cool wrote that little section and didn't get too heavily edited by Colonel Pogue. Responsibilities of leadership. Leadership implies responsibility. Within the military structure, there are two general areas of responsibility for every leader in every situation. They are, 1, the responsibility for ensuring that the mission is accomplished, and 2, the responsibility to the subordinates who work to accomplish that mission. Excellent, right? Completion of the mission is the first priority of leadership.
I swear, I was just about to say, I wish he had just reversed those two, like in the previous paragraph, like the way he wrote it in order.
And here's the thing. These two, the men and the mission, the subordinates and the mission, taking care of the and putting the mission as the priority. Listen, there are times, and that's what the military does. The military has to sacrifice, or at least put at risk, their troops in order to accomplish the mission sometimes. But if you continually put the mission above the troops, you won't have any more troops. And by the way, you'll probably have a mutiny as well.
Totally.
Because if you're just throwing people to die to accomplish the mission, then they're going to rebel against you.
Yeah, this is an ongoing debate. This conversation I've heard and been a part of and listened to countless times, all throughout my military career, and even to now, even in business, this mission or people debate. And I remember when I was on an exchange with the Air Force when the Air Force changed their motto, and I think the motto became, motto's the wrong word, not their motto, but some guiding principle that said
value or something.
Yeah, they ended up becoming resolving to mission first, people always. And the way I heard that was yeah, it's really hard to articulate. This is more important than that. Obviously, we have to achieve the mission. The concept of the people, if you want to say the people are the mission or the people are first, it's actually in the vein of making sure the mission gets done. It's not to subordinate the mission over the people. It's to recognize as the number one thing I have for me to make sure that I'm successful in my mission, which you could say is the most important thing, is my people. And if you can recognize that, then all of a sudden this isn't a debate of what's more important than the other. But if you get them out of order, you undermine your ability to be successful in that mission, because without your people, it will not happen. And in fact, the best thing I can do to be successful in my mission is put my people ahead of myself, and the chance of me being successful in the mission go up.
Yep. The other thing is, when you accomplish your mission, even with sacrifice, it should be a win for everyone. Yeah. So if you're doing missions where there's not every single person should be saying, yes, this is what I want to do because I want to protect our way of life. I want to protect freedom. I want to protect my family. I want to protect my country. In order to do that, I want to do this mission. So when you plan and execute and accomplish a mission, the mission is taking care of the people.
Right.
That's what should be happening. You shouldn't be going, we're going to go and do this mission, but no one in my platoon will benefit. Every single person in your platoon should benefit from executing a mission because you're protecting their families, their way of life. That's what we're doing.
And nowhere is that more true than in combat. Yep. That's how that manifests itself. That's how it becomes to be so real when you're in a leadership position, is that concept of the meaning behind those missions is you would never send your SEALs out on a mission that didn't do anything to accomplish the mission. And in that same vein, you wrote about it. That is in the core of that is the ultimate dichotomy, is you care about your people enough that when you send them out there, they might not come back. And the balance of inside that, but that reveals itself and magnifies itself so much in war. that understanding of what am I actually having to go do. And I wouldn't waste an ounce of human life on something that doesn't actually help us win. But if it does, the risk of that is they don't come back.
Yeah. Gets into this section here, leadership styles. There are two extremes in leadership styles: the authoritarian, autocratic, and the persuasive, democratic. Each leader is free to choose a style of leadership. The choice of leadership style is influenced by the situation, the subordinates, and the leader's personality. Authoritarian style. The authoritarian leader leads by personal control. Characteristics of the authoritarian leader style are as follows. Let's subordinates know he is in charge. Makes subordinates into a team but remains outside the team membership. Tells subordinates what to do and how to do it. Makes all decisions without asking for suggestions. And then there's the persuasive style. The persuasive leader uses personality to lead and influence subordinates. Characteristics of the persuasive leadership style are as follows. Doesn't emphasize that he's in charge. Develops subordinates into a team of which the leader is a member. Asks subordinates to do their jobs. Makes the decision, but asks for, listens to, and sometimes takes subordinates' advice. Oh, it's beautiful. I like how even in the extreme example of the persuasive style, it's sometimes going to take the advice, and still have to make sure that he's making the decision.
Yeah.
So that's good stuff. And then it says this: the two styles of leadership mentioned above are the extremes. Each style has its bad and good points.
What are the good points of the first one?
Like letting everyone know I'm in charge, making people in a team but not being a part of it, telling subordinates what to do and how to do it, and making decisions without. There's
Where's the upside?
There's no upside in there.
Dang, man. And how about hey, by the way, Jocko, you're free to pick whatever one you want. Go however you want to do this. Not one is good and one is bad.
Yeah. It just you can pick which one. As displayed in front of subordinates, the authoritarian must be perfect or the subordinates will lose respect for the leader. That's a great, so hey, look, if you want to be authoritarian, obviously just be perfect. That's, hey, just go ahead and be perfect. The persuasive leader must be very alert that subordinates won't play on friendships to get out of doing their work. Oh gosh. Very few Marine leaders are strictly authoritarian or strictly persuasive. So we finally get a taste of some dichotomy balance.
Yeah.
Most of them fall somewhere between the two styles, taking bits and pieces from each. The pieces used from each style are determined by the individual leader, the subordinates, and the situation at the time. Every Marine from private to general needs leadership, whether Marines are aware of it or not. They seek leadership, and it goes into talk about these tangible reasons for needing leadership and intangible reasons for leadership. The tangible things are like training, instruction, physical necessities like your shelter and your food. Those are why you need leadership, because you won't be able to get them on your own, I guess. Incentives, if you want to fulfill the need for incentives and challenges, that's why you need leadership. The intangible ones are you have people have the desire for adventure and security and belonging and recognition. So we're not going to spend a bunch of time on those things. Then we get to the leader's code. Lesson 6, the leader's code. To be an effective leader, you must know your professional strengths and weaknesses. The leader's code is a guideline to use in making an honest evaluation of yourself in leadership. After you determine these areas, you can improve weak areas and exploit the strong areers. I didn't think we were going to have this much fun with this. Well, here's a good example, like the leader's code. This is obviously a big deal, and you've never heard of it before. And it didn't make it out of this book. It's not horrible, but I become a leader by what I do. This is the leader's code. I become a leader by what I do. I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I strive constantly for self-improvement. I live by a moral code with which I set by an example that others can emulate. I know isn't there a little bit of arrogance in that statement? I'm just wondering. Hey, you know what? I'll be over here just setting an example that you guys can emulate. You guys good? I know my job and I carry out the spirit as well as the letter of the orders I receive. I take initiative and seek responsibilities, and I face situations with boldness and confidence. I estimate the situations and make my own decisions as to the best course of action. No matter what the requirements, I stay with the job until the job is done. No matter what the results, I assume full responsibilities. Cool. I train my men as a team and lead them with tact and enthusiasm and with justice. I command their confidence and their loyalty. Interesting use of the word. They know that I would not assign them any duty I would myself would not perform. Check. I see that they understand their orders, and I follow through energetically to ensure that their duties are fully discharged. I keep my men informed. Check. And I make their welfare one of my prime concerns. Check. These things I do selflessly in fulfillment of the obligations of leadership for the achievement of the life of the group goal. Check. So make their welfare one of your prime concerns. This should be up there somewhere, you know. And then you're supposed to do like a self-evaluation according to this code. Kind of an interesting concept. And you know, look, I'm skipping through, but they've got like suggested activities that you can do. At some time in your career, you've been assigned a job which both you and your senior know you could do. For some reason, your senior stood over your shoulder and kept telling you how to do it. The senior did not trust you with the authority of that job. How did that make you feel? To make matters worse, you discovered later that the job should not have been done in the way that you were instructed to do it, and your supervisor seemed to hold it against you that he was gigged for the job. What can you learn from this? It gives you a bunch of little examples, which some of them are pretty good. And then it gives you a test and little exercises to do. So that's how you complete these books. Developing leaders. Leadership traits and principles. And this is where you get to sort of fundamental, more pragmatic stuff that is taken from more historical
I'm guessing
doctrine.
When you get into traits and principles, I'm guessing those are going to be like the traditional, like ubiquitous Marine Corps, JJ did tie buckle, those type of things that have stood the test of time.
Nature of leadership traits. Leadership traits are individual characteristics. Proper understanding of the 14 leadership traits will help you gain the respect, confidence, willing obedience, and cooperation of your Marines. Check. The purpose of leadership traits. The purpose of the 14 leadership traits is to help you set guidelines for yourself by evaluating your own personality. And with respect to your leadership traits, you can find personal strengths and weaknesses of leadership. By following traits as a guide, you can exploit your strong traits and develop your weaker leadership traits. And then it talks about leadership principles as well. And here's the 14 leadership traits. Number 1 is integrity. And it gives you a definition of what integrity is, but then it tells you sort of how to execute integrity. As leader, you must have unquestioned integrity, honesty, a sense of duty, moral principles must be placed above all else. You must be totally trustworthy for subordinates to have faith in you and for your seniors to have confidence in you. The trait of integrity is developed by following 4 practices. Here's these 4 practices. Practice absolute honesty and be trustworthy at all times, not only with yourself, but with others. Never shade the truth. Be accurate and truthful in all statements. Don't tell your supervisors only what you think they want to hear. Tell it as is, but tactfully. Stand for what you believe. Even if your belief is an unpopular one, place honesty and duty above all else. So that's the number 1 thing, integrity. Obviously very important. Next one is knowledge. Nothing will gain confidence and respect of your subordinates more than quickly demonstrating knowledge. And it talks about correspondence courses and reading newspapers for current events and having discussions with experienced people. And it gives you the things to do. Read all kinds of articles and take courses. Listen to experienced people. Ask questions. The next trait is courage. Courage, the physical and mental control of fear, is essential to leadership. Courage is a mental quality that allows you to recognize fear, yet enables you to meet danger or opposition with calmness and firmness. Courage is a quality of mind that gives you personal control, enabling you to accept responsibility and to act in a dangerous situation. You show physical courage when you continue to perform in the face of personal danger. Physical courage also means controlling your emotions. You show moral courage when you stand up for and enforce decisions that are right, even in the face of popular disfavor. Admitting errors takes real moral courage. To develop the leadership trait of courage, you need to do the following. It's funny that admitting errors is put on the pedestal of needing real moral courage. That kind of shows you the mental attitude of whoever's writing this. I'd be like, hey, bro, I mean, like that's like 101. There's no moral courage in saying, hey, you know what, I made a mistake here. For this dude, he's like, bro, you need so much moral courage to say I was wrong. This is a good one, though. Place duty over your personal desires or feelings. Look for and accept responsibilities. Speak in a calm tone. Keep an orderliness in your thought process and not make any physical danger or hardship bigger than it really is. Stand for what is right, even in the face of popular disfavor. Never blame others for your mistakes. Check. Recognize fear, but control your emotions. So there you go. Courage. Decisiveness. I think we might even just call it. Like, you ever been at a game where you're like, all right, dude, hey, we just need to walk away right now. Like, we're calling the game. This one might do it to Dave Berke. It might do it to me. I don't know. So here we go. Next thing is decisiveness. Decisiveness is the ability to weigh all the facts in a situation, analyze the facts, and then arrive at a sound and timely decision. But before you make a decision, you must be sure that you have all the facts.
Oh, no.
Decisiveness is largely a matter of practice and experience. To develop the trait of decisiveness, you should do that. So here's why we're laughing at that. There is no situation where you have all the facts.
Doesn't exist.
I mean, even the word facts is a strong word to use. In combat, facts is a word you probably shouldn't even use.
Yeah. Like, just insert combat into that scenario, and no combat leader would they just wouldn't articulate it that way, because all you're doing is recognizing you have to make decisions with the void of all sorts of useful information. That's just the nature of it. Mm-hmm. Forget about facts. Just like basic scenario understanding of what's going on, which is why decentralized command is so important, because the closer you are, the more This one is almost like maybe you're off the target a little bit. Like maybe you're not on the paper.
I'll give it to you. This isn't like you didn't even hit the berm, bro. You missed. You had a misfire. So interesting. But when you look at the military in the 80s and 90s, and look, you and I were both in the 90s. This isn't me pointing the finger. This is what we did. It was, hey, we need to know everything. When we would plan these big missions with a 96-hour planning cycle, that was the standard in the SEAL teams.
Right.
Did you guys have a standard?
I actually think there was. I know that phrase, the 96-hour planning cycle.
96-hour planning cycle. So if you wanted to go conduct a direct action mission, you need to have a 96-hour planning cycle. Yeah. I have literally conducted direct action missions with 7 minutes and go and launch. Like, that's what we got to. Yeah. So, and if you think I had, quote, all the facts, bro, we had like a rough grid of where the target might be. Update us as we move.
Well, I think the term QRF is somewhat universal, like the quick reaction force. We had a standing QRF all the time, which had very short, after 5 minutes. We had some number, like it was 5 minutes. At some period of time from the time that got triggered to launch the QRF was a very, very short period of time, minutes, whatever it was. The most likelihood of direct action happened on those, like if you were launched on a QRF, you were going to get into some fight somehow, and you had there's no. I mean, no you best you're like yelling at the turret gunner, who might not even be your turret gunner, because he's not actually
he was in the chow hall.
He's in the chow hall, like, dude, we got to launch. And so even inside that, and listen, somebody wrote this, and that guy might even be listening to this.
Best intention,
best intentions, fully. In every way, as I hear this, I keep telling myself, I understand what you're saying. That said, and I don't want this to become like a lesson of, oh, if you're not in combat, you don't understand this. That's not the point at all. Actually, the opposite is true. Is the point behind that is the recognition of all these things that you feel like you want to control when you get in the dynamic environment in business, in raising your kids, and having a relationship with somebody, and in combat, and in all things, is the recognition is that you can't do any of these things. You can't do any of these things. So I don't want it to be like Dave's over here, like, oh, because I was in war, I know all this stuff. It's the recognition of how much less you can dictate and how much more you have to rely on the people around you, which is why I think the frustration or some of it is the humor coming out of like, bro, did you just say control? Like, you can't control what they do. Did you just say dictate? You can't dictate to them what they do. And I think inside that is why I'm laughing at this. But in all seriousness, the intention behind that, I understand that. And I have this sense of like, you're like pulling someone from the boot camp scenario and starting to like ease them into the real Marine Corps. And listen, boot camp and OCS, those are authoritarian experiences. Yep. Nobody's like, hey, Jocko, nobody's asking what you want to do. And it's almost like they're pulling them into just like a step away from that. My take on this is as you lead and train your people and lead and train yourself, just behave, act, teach, and train the way you're supposed to, without the sense of they're not capable of understanding or they're not capable of embracing the right type of leadership. You don't need to moderate moving away from authoritarianism. You should say, don't be an authoritarian leader. Here's the reasons why. Not, hey, do what you want, however you want to do it. It's not good leadership. But if all you have is boot camp, and do you want Marines to be responsible? Yeah, I do. I want my Marines to do what I tell them to do. I understand why you're saying that, but how you make that happen isn't like telling them what to do. So the gap that's inside there for me is the connection between where they might have come from, and I'm just assuming you pull this from boot camp, which is not the real world. It's not how you want to lead people, and somehow trying to moderate them into the real Marine Corps.
They've done.
I'm guessing, obviously.
I think Jim Webb, James Webb's son, he writes articles, and he sent me an article that they've made some like significant changes in Marine Corps infantry training, and they sounded outstanding. And what it sounded like was it has shifted towards like when I ran training, what we did, which was like really decentralized. Like it was going to be mayhem, it was going to be chaos, and they're now hitting these Marines with those type of scenarios so that they're even more prepared. So that's a great thing to hear. Yeah. And again, it's interesting how we're gonna drift, right? It's when you're in an environment where you can get away with things, you'll drift towards getting away with them. Yeah. And it's important. This is almost like a really good reminder. Like you said, it's like not like somebody wrote this with bad intentions, but this is what we're drawn to, and the authoritarian mind is drawn to this even more. And the orderly mind is drawn to this even more. And the highly disciplined, which, as you know, obviously, discipline is like my favorite characteristic. And if you have too much discipline, you're going to fall apart in combat, because this is not a disciplined environment. Combat is not a discipline. You need discipline in combat, but things aren't going to happen the way you want them to happen. And they're not going to happen the way you expect them to happen. And the Marine that's been obeying you because he was scared of getting written up, he's not going to listen to you now because you're telling him to go across the street where there's freaking, machine gun fire going down. He's not going. Yeah. Or he can't hear you. Or he didn't, his radio got shot. Like there's a million things that are going to happen.
Yeah. And you're setting him up to fail too.
Yep. So the less you can do as a leader and the more you allow your team to do, the better they're going to perform. So you're not going to have all the facts. Now it says this: form the habit of considering several points of view for every problem. That's a good call. Learn from the mistakes of others. That's a good call. Force yourself to make a decision and then check the decision to see if it's sound. Well, that's a good call. Talk to people and practice making your conversations logical and clear. That's a good call. So those are all positive. Dependability. A dependable leader is one who can be relied on to carry out any mission to the best of his or her personal ability. Cool. It says the steps are practiced honest thinking. Avoid making excuses. We can go stronger than avoid. We can actually say do not. Accomplish the assigned task regardless of the obstacles. Cool. Always be prompt to perform all tasks to the best of your ability. Yeah, check. Be careful about making promises and personal deals. But when you have made them, build a reputation on keeping them. What kind of personal deals are we talking about here? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe that's like in the civilian sector they're talking about. Like, I'll sell you this car for $900. Initiative. The trait of initiative is key to being a successful leader. Initiative is simply seeing what has to be done and doing it without having to be told to do it. Yes. As a Marine NCO, you must develop initiative not only in yourself, but in your subordinates as well. Yes, your Marines will develop trust, and respect when you take prompt action in meeting new situations. You develop initiative in subordinates. To develop initiative in subordinates, you should assign tasks according to the subordinate's ability and experience. But once a task is assigned, don't tell subordinates how to do it unless they ask for suggestions. By allowing subordinates to do the job, it not only develops initiative, but frees you to do other tasks. Yes, we nailed one.
Dude.
We nailed one. Good job. Closely related to initiative is resourcefulness. It goes on about that. Another side of initiative is the ability to anticipate. Simply stated, this is the ability to foresee situations before they arise. This prior knowledge gives you a chance to plan for the event and have preparations ready to deal with situations. Great. And then just talks about it giving you an advantage. So here's the steps. Develop and maintain a state of mental and physical alertness. Look for tasks to be done without being told to do them. Practice thinking and planning ahead. Anticipate situations before they're great. The next one is tact. Tact is the ability to deal with people without causing friction or giving offense. More simply stated, tact is the ability to say and do the right thing at the right time. You must use tact not only when dealing with seniors, but with subordinates as well. To successfully use tact, you must be courteous, because courtesy given will be returned. It is important that courtesy not be misunderstood as brown-nosing. Inexperienced NCOs may feel wrongly that politeness in a military command is a sign of weakness. All orders given will be obeyed, but those given with courtesy will be obeyed willingly. Even in emergency situations, I'm digging myself a hole in the Marine Corps, and I'm chuckling too much. I'm sorry, Marines. But quite honestly, I haven't worked with a Marine that's in this mode.
I was going to say
in my life.
I don't think you have any issues because the Marines that are listening to this are like, they're on board.
They're laughing along with us.
They're like, all orders will be obeyed. Good luck with that.
Usually you will find that a calm and courteous though firm manner of speech gets the best results. Tact becomes very important when criticizing a subordinate. Lack of tact can crush a Marine's spirit and initiative. Criticism must be made in a manner that points out a weakness in the subordinate's action, but still encourages the subordinate to continue to show initiative. Cool. To develop leadership trait of tact, you must do the following. Be considerate. Develop the habit of cooperating in spirit as well as fact. Study the actions of senior NCOs who enjoy a reputation for being able to handle Marines successfully. Check yourself for tolerance and patience. If at fault, correct your own habits. Apply the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Let no Marine, superior or subordinate, exceed you in courtesy and consideration for the feelings of others. Cool. That's not a bad goal. Try and be nicer to everybody than they are to you. Echo Charles, you're pretty successful at that one. You're a pretty nice guy.
Oh, I like to think so, yes, sir.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen you be mean to somebody.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. It's been a long time, I feel like. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else to tell you,
okay.
brother.
Good, courteous Marine over there. Next one is justice. Justice is fairness. Search your mental attitudes to determine prejudice. Seek to rid your mind of them. Learn to be absolutely impartial when imposing punishment or giving rewards. Search out the facts of each case. Study human behavior. Be honest with yourself. Recognize those subordinates worthy of commendation or reward. Next one is enthusiasm. Explain, and I'm jumping through some stuff. Explain why the mission must be accomplished whenever you can do so. How about almost always? Know and believe in your work. Tackle all tasks with a cheerful can-do attitude. Believe in your mission no matter what it is. Look, you got to be careful with that one. What is your mission? Why are we doing it? If it doesn't make sense, man, ask some questions. Ask some questions. Bearing. Bearing is a Marine's general appearance, carriage, deportment, and conduct. By your bearing, you establish a standard for your peers, superiors, and subordinates. Your appearance should show confidence, competence, alertness, and energy. Your clothing and equipment should be neat and clean at all times. Your voice and action should be under control. Few things can steady the morale of troops like a leader who, with full knowledge of the difficulties of the situation, neither looks or acts worried. When speaking to Marines, talk in short, plain sentences. Never talk down Marines or allow sarcasm to enter the conversation. Vulgar speech, frequent loss of temper. Like it says frequent loss of temper. Like occasionally, go for it. and an irritable nature show lack of self-confidence that subordinates easily see. They react to the lack of self-confidence with resentment or even insubordination. Avoid criticizing the entire group of Marines for the failings of a few. Those who didn't do anything wrong will resent it. Your bearing should show dignity and control of both your emotions and your actions. Dignity shows pride and confidence in yourself and the ability of your Marines. Emotional control shows that you have any situation well in hand. To develop and improve your bearing, you should do the following. Practice control of your voice, facial expressions, and gestures. Demonstrate calmness, sincerity, and understanding. Master your emotions so that you can control them and they do not control you. Speak simply and directly. Never reprimand subordinates and spell. Observe, study leaders who enjoy reputation. No one adhere regulations. Demand the highest of standards for yourself and your subordinates. Avoid indiscriminate coarse behavior, profanity, and vulgarity. They didn't see Full Metal Jacket, maybe. It is amazing. Like, I went to OCS, and those Marine drill instructors, they never swore. They probably swore 5 times or something like that. What about the basic school?
I mean, to be quite honest, like, after OCS, I mean, even partially at OCS, like, the best leaders that I worked with were professional, and they were articulate and they spoke professionally. And if I look back and like the guys that I looked up to the most, they were professional. That said, the use of vulgarity was, I would say, like commonplace. But
even at the basic school?
Amongst the Marine,
were there females going through the basic school?
Yeah, I was in an integrated company, like I think one of the first one in a while. Amongst like the Marines, everybody was cursing all the time.
What about the instructor staff?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, and I think my point to that was it wasn't something that was policed. It was something that was, I think, demonstrated. And like, I don't remember my platoon commander, a guy who I respect. I have no and it could have happened, but I don't have a recollection of him cursing. And I have a recollection of some and some not. But like the lieutenants, like I think we cursed all the time.
Yeah. But the staff did.
Correct.
That's the main thing.
That's right. And the example that was being shown, it's like we weren't emulating that example. The staff, even at OCS, were pretty professional people in terms of not cursing and just being articulate, well-spoken leaders was valued.
Is it hard to get a billet? Like, is it OCS instructor?
Not OCS. No, I think TBS is a more, I don't know if demanding is the right word. And this is, however many years now, but no, TBS was a much harder thing than OCS back in the day to get a job there.
Yeah, the Marine drill instructors at OCS for me had like their whole vocabulary of non-swear words.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. That's what daggum, friggin'.
Yep.
I remember hearing all that, and that stayed true. But amongst your peers, like it's like you didn't follow that example. But yeah, totally.
What's TBS?
The basic school. Yeah. So every Marine, go ahead, Dave.
No, you got it. We talked about it earlier. Every Marine, no matter what your job is going to be, pilot, infantry, or everything in between, goes through a 6-month course as an officer, which gives you a little bit of exposure to basically every potential job out there. Everything from supply to logistics to communication to artillery to tanks to infantry. So every Marine officer has a little sense of all the things the Marine Corps does. So even a pilot knows what infantrymen are doing. And the Marine Corps places a big premium on that concept. Every Marine is a rifleman, and the investment they make as a Marine, even if you know you're destined to go be an aviator, you go through the basic school like all Marines do.
It's like general education for the Marines.
Yeah, kind of like that, yeah. So you get enough of exposure to do what we talked about before, which was just understand what might be going on. You're not going to be an expert in any of it, but you do get exposure to all of it, which is awesome. It paid huge dividends to me. We used to joke about it, like, the last time I shot a rifle before I went to Ramadi was at the basic school, which is crazy.
So that's like what, 12 years, 13 years or something?
Yeah, basic school 94, Ramadi 06.
12 years.
Yep.
And you hadn't shot a rifle?
I had not squeezed the trigger on a rifle since the day I sighted in my M4, I don't know, a couple months before I deployed.
Dang.
But I had done it, so I had just enough, the basic fundamentals of understanding. But I had done everything from like 50 cals and 240 M60s at the time, and Mark 19s and all that stuff.
That is so jacked up.
It's crazy, man.
Like think about me
Totally, dude.
Like I had spent like literally my entire adult life just doing that. You know how many millions of rounds I'd shot?
Maybe you're rethinking bringing Dave on all those missions we did together. This guy can't shoot a rifle.
In my mind, I was looking at you like, hey, he's
squared
might be
away.
a pilot, but he's a squared away Marine rifleman at heart. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
you're
I
like,
shot the
wait,
pistol every year for however many years, but I hadn't touched a rifle.
which way does the magazine
Yeah,
go in?
totally, man.
Oh, that's crazy.
It was a steep learning curve for me to get back.
How long was like a workup? How did you get ready? How many rounds did you shoot before you went on deployment?
Dude, remember, man, so I got to my Anglica unit basically October of 05. And I spent the first, month basically doing the tactical area, TACP. Mm-hmm. All that was, I was just going to be in Japan for a year. And then around Christmas time, like, hey, we need volunteers. I got volunteered for that. I volunteered for that job. They're like, hey, we need volunteers to go to Iraq. I'm like, well, I'll go to Iraq, You know the whole story behind that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't till...
That was in January.
That was in December. Okay. So for Christmas, it was like, hey, honey. That was when I kind of broke the news like
and
this
you
whole
were
thing.
newlywed at that time.
We had just gotten married. That's right. Hey, sorry. So we go on Christmas, come back in January.
She was thinking like maybe a trip to Japan.
Totally.
It's all
It's like this is going to be the blast.
Go to see the Kodokan.
That's right.
Yeah. Judo players. Where are you at?
We go Christmas vacation, the holidays, whatever. And in January, they're like, hey, all the Iraq Marines are going to Camp Lejeune. So I got to Camp Lejeune January, I'll call it like the 10th or whatever it was. And I deployed February 20th. So I had 5 weeks. 5 weeks.
You know how many rounds?
Not a lot, dude. Not a lot. A little. It was like BZO'd, and then I did a couple of courses. But keep in mind too, like I use my rifle obviously.
Yeah.
But my primary weapon there was the radio, and clearly I was much more inclined to do that. But dude, I wasn't shooting rounds to that rifle at all. Hardly ever.
Did you do immediate action drills, like with your team?
Yeah. I did very little of that. Uh-huh. Now I had a couple of pretty squared away staff NCOs.
Dude, you must have been so stoked rolling out with us. You must have been like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like these guys have got.
I was mostly, and I look back and talk to Leif about it. I was mostly stoked that you were cool with me coming with you. Like that, even to this day, I look back, like the fact that they had enough confidence in me and my guys so we could be with you guys was pretty awesome for me.
Now your guys, these are like infantry Marines that get assigned to Anglico. How's that work?
Well, my guys were almost 100% artillery.
Really?
Yeah, just most Anglico is artillery. They're not all.
And that's because they serve as forward observers at some point, or
That's
something.
exactly right. Okay. They had experience with calling calling for fire, artillery call for fire, and forward observers, things like that. It's not some rule that it has to be artillery, but the thing that was crazy though is my team. So I had a 13-man team. My 5 of us that I stayed, because we ended up doing missions as a small unit leader. I had 3 teams. I was one of those 3 teams. Every one of my guys was artillery and had never deployed.
Dang, bro.
So it was kind of crazy.
That's wild.
I'm glad you didn't know this back then.
I'm glad I didn't either. Damn, you guys were pros though. Like
we did all right, man.
Yeah.
We did all right.
That's freaking legit.
It was pretty cool to be with you guys.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild. Because I was like thinking like randomly you and I would be just like out in a building somewhere in Ramadi and you're like telling them like, hey, what do you got? You're like telling me what's going on. I'm just thinking you're a rifleman. Oh, that's freaking awesome. Next thing, endurance. Endurance, like courage, has 2 distinct parts. Physical endurance means being able to function effectively when tired or in pain. Mental endurance is the ability to think straight when fatigued, distressed, or in pain. Demonstrated endurance brings respect from subordinates. Lack of endurance fails not only to set a proper example for subordinates to follow, but can also be mistaken for a lack of courage. You can increase both mental and physical endurance by doing the following. Avoiding excesses that lower both physical and mental stamina. Keeping physically fit by exercise and proper diet. Check. Learning to stand discomfort by undertaking hard physical tasks. Check. Forcing yourself to study when you are tired and your mind is sluggish. Check. Finishing every job regardless of obstacles. So there you go. Good to go. We support. Next one is unselfishness. The unselfish leader is one who gives credit where credit is due. Unselfishness means not taking advantage of a situation for personal gain at the expense of others. No subordinate can respect an NCO who takes credit for jobs well done and blames others when performance is poor. Check. An unselfish Marine NCO will ensure subordinates' needs come before personal needs. Check. To develop your trait of unselfishness, you should do the following. See that subordinates have the best that can be obtained for them under the circumstances. Try to understand the problems, military or personnel, of subordinates. David Bellavia, he told that story about his like battalion sergeant major, and they're like out in the street, and his battalion sergeant major has an old M16 with iron sights on it, and everyone else has got like the high speed stuff. And he like that's what David Bellavia remembered, is that his command sergeant major, who was killed in combat, what he remembered about him is like he wouldn't take the good weapon. You know, that's that. Like I remember thinking about that after he was on the podcast, and I was like, that's what he remembered. Of all the things you remember, he remembered a bunch of other things, but like think of how much that stands out. He, like this guy, he wouldn't take the good weapons from the troops, even though he's the senior enlisted man in a freaking battalion. Yeah. Might even have been a regimental sergeant major. But just awesome. Put the comfort, pleasures, and recreation of your subordinates before your own. In the field, your Marines eat before you do. Give credit to subordinates for jobs well done. Check. Loyalty. Loyalty is the quality of faithfulness to your country, Marine Corps, seniors, and subordinates. Demonstrated loyalty wins respect and confidence. Loyalty means supporting the views and methods the unit employs, but doesn't mean becoming a yes man. Thank you. So there you go. We get a little bit of, some Vietnam dude.
You got a Desert Storm guy in there, right?
Desert Storm guy threw something in there. To develop loyalty, you should do the following. Be quick to defend subordinates from abuse. Well, thank you. Never give the slightest hint of disagreement with orders from seniors when giving instruction to subordinates. Now, I made a little note here, because there was I don't know if you remember this, the very first trait that got covered was integrity. And it says, be accurate, truthful in all statements. Don't tell your superiors only what you think they want to hear. Tell it as it is, but tactfully. Practice absolute honesty at all times, not only with yourself, but with others. Never shade the truth. So now, just FYI, we're saying never give the slightest hint of disagreement with orders from seniors when giving instructions to subordinates. So it's like we understand the caveat that we're throwing on there. Here's the problem. This is not a good plan. It's not. First of all, because the team will see through it. Because you're telling them to do something that doesn't make sense. You know it doesn't make sense, and if you know it doesn't make sense, they're all going to know it doesn't make sense. Okay, maybe they won't all know, but you got a platoon of 40 guys. 12 of them know. 9 of them know. 9 of them are looking at you like you're a jackass, and we don't believe you. So how do we make this happen? It goes back to earlier when we're talking and we develop a relationship with our boss so that we can say, hey, boss, can you explain to me why we're doing this? And if you have a good relationship with them and something doesn't make sense, either they can explain it to you so it does make sense, or you can explain the ramifications that are going to occur and why this is a bad idea. And if you still get the shut up and do what I told you, you go down to the troops. You don't lie to them. You go down to the troops and say, hey, fellas, look, I pushed back against the boss. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. We're going to do it to the best of our ability. And here's how we're going to mitigate whatever problems might occur. That's what you do.
I'm even thinking, Hackworth going on those patrols. Like there's even the whole spectrum that's inside there of like, all right, Jocko is the worst boss in the world. He's going to order my guys to do something to get him killed. I can fall on my sword, which is like the classic. It's like the what's the word? It's like the most romantic. Like Dave's going to fall on his sword. I keep reminding people, you know what happens when you fall on your sword? You fall on your sword.
You die.
You die. That's not good. And then Dave gets replaced with Echo is like, whatever you say, boss. And in that case, like, all right, we're going to go on that patrol. These are dumb. So what I'm going to go outside the wire. I'm going to set up this. I'm going to come back. Hey, we got no contact today. So you're even talking about even the spectrum inside there. Mm-hmm. But the thing of it is that I think the key takeaway from that, because the truth of the matter is most of the time, you're not getting these orders going to get your people killed.
No.
That's such a rare, like an extreme example. Most of the time, it's just like dumb. Okay, nobody's going to die. It's not going to ruin the company, but it's dumb. Inside there, if I come back and go, hey, Jock, hey, guys, this is the best idea ever. Boss is awesome, and we're going to go do this. I'm going to lose so much leadership capital, leadership credibility, but I can't say, hey, listen, I know this can be frustrating sometimes. I know sometimes it doesn't make sense. Here's what we're going to do. Here's why. Let me explain it. And if it's not going to get anybody killed or put anybody at risk, they'll still do it. But the reason they're doing it is not undying obedience to your leadership. It's actually that you are being honest with them.
You have integrity.
You got integrity, exactly. And so even
key.
that definition side there, even understanding that there's a balance even inside that concept.
I remember getting told, there's two good examples of this. One of them is from Band of Brothers. When they send the recon across the river, someone gets killed, they come back the next night, the colonel's like, hey, send another recon tonight. And he's like, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. He's like, shut up and do it. He says, okay. And they go sit in the basement of the thing and drink wine.
Yep.
I heard this story when I was a new guy that, in Vietnam, these guys got told, hey, you're going to go out and do a patrol in this area, and or set up an ambush in this area. And they're like, hey, it's a bad area. There's not going to be anything. And they're like, no, shut up and do it. And he goes, okay, cool. Yep. Or whatever. The platoon commander said, cool, got it. They went, patrolled, 200 yards outside the gate, sat in the bushes for 5 hours, patrolled back in. Hey, no contact. Didn't say anything.
Yeah, so, I just said that I associated with Hackworth, but that I'm misplacing that. It's the story. It's that story that you told of like.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why I connected to Hackworth, but it was those patrols of like, boss says to do this, I'm going to go do this, but I'm actually not really doing it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. It came from the story you told.
Right, and that is like, look, that is now we're starting to develop some issues, right?
Yep.
Now we got some issues. We got some issues because now we're giving false information up the chain of command. So now we're in just as bad of a spot as doing down. So that is not the right answer.
Totally.
The right answer is to develop that relationship. But what you're talking about, you said use the term in extremis, people are going to get killed. So if we talking in extremis, people are going to get killed, I'm not going to get my guys killed if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, but that, like you said, this is not like, oh, another day in the military, got ordered to do something that's going to get about. That doesn't. I got asked this the other day. This guy pulled me aside after an event, and he's like, what do you do when you get ordered to do something that is, immoral? And I was like, oh, don't do it. He goes, oh, you just don't do it? And I was like, no. You can't do things that are immoral, unethical, or illegal. You can't do them. As a matter of fact, I said it's your duty not to do them. A general order of the century says you must obey all lawful orders. If there's things that are unlawful, you don't do them. In fact, you have to not do them. And he was kind of looking at me surprised. He goes, well, how often did that happen? I go, it never happened.
Exactly.
Never. Actually, 0 times in 20 years.
And that's really the point. It's centered to the point I was trying to make is we create some story that I'm being told by this awful, evil boss who's trying to get all my people killed. And how do I handle that? I'm like, well, that never happened to me.
Yeah.
Has it happened in history? Yeah, I guess it does. And then inside that, but from your perspective or from the point you're making from a leadership standpoint, if I've done all these other things right and I got a good relationship with my boss, Jocko, hey, what are the chances you're gonna? Hey, Dave, I got this unethical thing. I want you to go. It's not gonna happen.
I got a plan. I want you to go. Actually, it's a bunch of people are gonna get wounded or killed. Go ahead and execute it.
Totally. So those scenarios.
And I have no reason why.
Right. They don't just sit by themselves. That doesn't just happen. Yeah. So we want to avoid the idea that like, all right, what do you do in this case? Yeah. Well, that never happened to me. But that didn't happen. I never once had a relationship with my boss by which he said, hey, come here. Half your people are going to die. It serves no purpose, but I want you to go do it. Like, come on, man. Like, we're not doing that.
Hey, Dave, you know what? This is going to cost the company a bunch of money. It's going to give us a bad reputation, and we're probably going to get some people to quit.
Yeah.
I want you to go and execute this.
Right.
And you're like, cool, got it. Stuff doesn't happen. Yeah. But that's also why truth, that's the leading trait here was integrity up and down the chain of command. So we like that.
Yes.
Practice doing every task to the best of your ability. Wholeheartedly support your commander's decisions. How do you best support your commander's decisions? By guiding your commander and pushing back against your commander when something doesn't make sense. And getting on board with the little things that aren't going to matter that much.
Totally.
You tell me to do something, I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to kick ass at it. If you tell me to do something that's totally stupid, I'm not going to let you make that mistake. That's how I'm going to wholeheartedly support you, is by being smart and having a good relationship with my boss. Never discuss the personal problems of subordinates with others. Cool. Stand for your country, the Marine Corps, your unit, and your fellow Marines when they are unjustly accused. Check. Never criticize seniors in the presence of subordinates. Check. With a caveat. You know, like you said, if you're doing something, if you're being told to do something that doesn't make sense, but it's not worth, quote, falling on your sword over, it's like, hey, listen, here's why we're doing this. I know it's not maybe the best way to get it done, but in order to develop a better relationship with the boss and gain more clout with him, we're going to go ahead and execute this. We're going to wear our freaking dress uniform tonight. And everyone's like, you got to be kidding me. Yep. I wish I was kidding you, but I'm not.
Yeah.
We're going to, and you know what? We're all going to look so sharp that the boss is going to know that we're the platoon that can get things done.
That's such a great example, because those are it's like, boss wants the paperwork done 12 hours ahead of the due date. You know, like, oh, come on. Like, guys, listen. Yeah. Those are the scenarios. Wear your uniform you don't want to wear. Getting paperwork done. Those are the far more realistic scenarios you had to come down and go, hey, guys, I know it's a little bit frustrating, but as opposed to boss is sending us on the suicide mission with no benefit. That's not the scenario that's more likely. It's the one you just described, like, guys, I know you don't want to do this. I know sometimes this comes out and can be kind of frustrating, but we're going to do this, and here's why. And if you got a good relationship with your people, most of the time we're going to go, okay, fine, no worries, Dave. We got your back, and they're going to just get it done. It's not that big of a deal.
I just remembered at Stoner's funeral in Hawaii, there was some guy that was there. I want to say it was in Hawaii, who was stationed on the ship with Stoner, and Stoner was in charge of, like, I don't even know what he's in charge of, like some department on the ship, and they pulled into port, and Stoner like gave the Liberty brief. He's like, hey, you guys, like, Liberty, go, don't get in trouble. And they were all like, damn, we don't have any duties or whatever. And as they got this guy, he said they were leaving the ship and they looked like wherever on the ship, and Stoner was there like doing the duty that they all had to do. Like they had to clean something or do something, and he was up there just like doing it by himself. And I was like, check. And the dude was so freaking like pumped, That's taking care of your people.
Totally.
Never criticize your seniors and friends and subordinates. Check. Do not discuss command problems outside the unit. Check. Be loyal to your seniors and subordinates. Check. Support the lawful policies of senior officers, whether you personally agree with them or not. Loyalty is a two-way street. What I would ask you to do is not to support the lawful policies of senior officers, whether you personally agree. What I would ask you to do is understand them. I would ask you to understand why your boss wants you to wear a uniform on a Tuesday night. I would want you to understand why your boss wants you to turn the weapons in at a certain time before goodbye. Like understand and give them the benefit of the doubt. That's a little bonus too, because you could be hypercritical about everything and nothing makes sense. If you want to be hypercritical, literally nothing makes sense in the military. It's all just dumb. So if you want to go level 12 hypercritical, and it's the same thing in any company. I could go to some company right now and start talking to the subordinate teams, start talking to the frontline personnel, and we could get a list of stupid things that company's doing, and we could never stop writing them down. So instead of looking for what's stupid, try and understand why these things are happening. And this is the last one, judgment. Judgment is the ability to logically weigh facts and possible solutions on which to base sound decisions, and includes common sense. When faced with a new problem or information you don't understand, seek advice before you attempt a solution. It isn't degrading to ask questions. Note to self. In leadership strategy and tactics, one of the things that a leader is supposed to do is ask questions. It is embarrassing to arrive at a poor solution because of the lack of judgment to seek help. To develop the trait of judgment, you should do the following. Practice making estimates of the situation. And that's something you can do as a leader. Get your team members, someone that you're trying to coach and mentor, be like, hey, Echo, what do you think we should do right here? What do you think's going on? And have them talk you through it. And you're going to get better. You're going to come up with a better solution anyways, but if I have Echo try and come up with a solution, estimate the solution, or estimate the situation, come up with a solution, come up with a plan, I'm detached, and all of a sudden I get to see a different perspective that I didn't see before. So there's a little bonus. There's a bonus to that. Anticipate situations which require decisions to be prepared when the need arises. Cool. Avoid making rash decisions. I like how they use the word avoid. I would go strong. Like, don't make rash decisions. And I wouldn't use, you don't want to say never, but you need to go stronger than avoid. Like, as often as possible, avoid making rash decisions, right? Maybe even a little stronger than that. We'd have to break out the thesaurus and get busy to figure out where we're going. And the last one here, approach problems with a common sense attitude, which may sound common sense, but Sometimes it's not. There you go. Some more leadership. What do you got, Echo Charles?
When you kind of rewinding to that maybe a few lines ago, when let them come up with a plan or whatever, just to give them the opportunity to exercise their capability or whatever. Are you going in there with knowing you're not going to use their plan and they know that, or are you like,
maybe you come up with a good plan? If you come up with a plan that's like viable, sounds good to me.
Right.
Yeah. If you come up with an idiot plan, we're not going to use it. But what are the chances of you coming up with an idiot plan? If I said to you right now, you have no military experience. If I was like, hey, Echo, we've got to attack this building. Yeah. You'd probably come up with a plan that was almost usable, right? You'd be like, well, we should put some guys over here, and maybe I gave you a 5-minute class. Then if I gave you a 5-minute class, you could probably come up with a plan that we would execute. Yeah. And I'd be like, cool, sounds close enough.
Okay. So it's like the primary purpose for you doing that is to give them exercise, but completely open for that to be the jam.
And as you know, this is like how I roll anyways. I mean, this is like what I do all the time with everything.
That's kind of why I was asking. Because I'm like, are you like in your mind saying, I'm going to come up with a plan, but in case he does, we'll go with it kind of a thing? No. Or, because there's a difference between that and then really leaning on someone for the plan. Like, if it's clear that Dave knows more than you or me or whatever about something, you're like, hey, we better go to Dave for this plan. That's like leaning on him for it. But sometimes it's like unnecessary. But the primary reason, you want to give them the exercise so down the road or whatever, they're going to be really good. But that's the primary purpose. You see what I'm saying?
I don't even know if it's the primary purpose, because if Dave's working for me and he's a platoon commander or he's a project manager for me, and I go, hey, Dave, how do you want to execute this? Yes, he gets education. Yes, he gets to learn. But yes, he's probably going to come up with a decent plan. And as long as he comes up with a decent plan, we're probably going to execute that thing. Maybe we got to make a couple adjustments, but that's kind of what we're doing. So it's not even like, hey, if you're trying to train someone.
Right.
If I'm working with someone, I'm going to try and let them come up with a plan. It's going to make me better, because when Dave comes up with a plan, I have a plan in my head, right? I've got something. Even if I look at a target for 3 seconds or I look at a project for 3 seconds, I go, yeah, I know what I do here. As soon as I ask Dave, I get a whole totally different perspective. Yeah. And so, and by the way, Dave only sees what Dave sees. So now when I say throw something out there, he's like, oh, and it's like building my leadership capital because I'm listening to him, but I also have good ideas myself. It's just a win-win-win-win across the board.
I understand.
So, fundamentals of Marine leadership. Dave Berke, there you go. You handed me this manual. We got some good, we got some bad, we got some ugly. We only covered a little bit of it. I don't know if we're going to dig back into this thing, but the important thing is to always dig, see what you can find. What do you got? Anything else?
No, I think we said it. I mean, inside there, like I said, in every case, I was thinking to myself, I understand what you're saying, but so that's all good to go. I'm actually interested in see if there's like an updated version. The 2017 version of this that has 17 years or 16 years of combat experience inside there. For me, it's kind of cool though. The 14 leadership traits, those we called it JJ did type buckle. That's the acronym: justice, judgment, decisiveness, initiative. All those letters that go on, that you talked about, that has stood this test of time. And as you read what they meant, I'm like, that's right. It also, I think, gets to the, explaining this stuff is harder than it seems. And we talk about leadership all the time. We teach some of the most rudimentary leadership behaviors in the world: cover and move, communication. And yet we know how hard it is to do them. And so inside this, you get this sense of even for these folks, understanding it and explaining it and being able to do it are very different things. The stuff is hard. Explaining it is hard. Learning it and understanding it is so much harder than it is to just say it. Yeah. And it's actually cool to hear as you're talking through that, my leadership radar, my leadership ear, like wrong. And to be able to pull out even some of the nuance inside there, even like you said, don't say avoid, being a tyrannical leader. Don't be a tyrannical leader. And had some fun with that, but this was cool to see that I had this sense of this as someone struggling to articulate a concept they understood but didn't know how to teach it, and didn't have the experience reservoir to go, oh, okay, this concept, now I can put meaning around this concept based on my experience.
I would say that a little yes to that, but also I would say that where I thought you were going with that is, look, you can read the word decisiveness and you can understand what that means, and I can understand what that means, but someone else, apparently this guy, thinks that decisiveness means you need to understand all the facts. So even these things that we understand a certain way, their interpretation of what decisiveness means is different, and quite frankly, in some of these cases, not correct.
Right.
So they were able to take correct concepts and teach them in a way that are incorrect. I don't think it had anything to do with not being able to express it or articulate it. I think they actually didn't understand the thing.
Yeah, what that actually means.
What that actually means. Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about some of those decentralized command that were run, I'm kind of like flipping through to see some of those examples where I like wrote like no, like what we just said. Never give the slightest hint of disagreement with orders when giving instructions to subordinates. So we're not telling the truth to our troops. Loyalty, I would focus on, hey, if you're loyal to your boss, you don't let them tell you to do something that doesn't make any sense. That's not being loyal.
Totally. It's the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah. The last thing I want for loyalty from Dave Berke is I'm like, hey, Dave, charge that machine gun nest with your squad, elevated position, go. The last thing I want from you is you, yes, sir,
Roger
and charge.
that. Yeah.
I want you to be loyal to you, to your troops, and loyal to me by saying, hey, boss, this is dumb. We need to lay down cover fire and we'll maneuver around the outside. So there's some swings and some misses, which is very interesting. I was thinking this, I started thinking about this. I'm like, was this thing like the Navy Achievement Medal of some lieutenant colonel or major that was like, rewrote the Marine Corps fundamental, and he just kind of, that was his project. He got after it,
Yeah. I wish it was the same with all the ones. I wish you could have just been in the room, because there's shades, there's little peaks of,
yep.
Oh, that guy nailed it. Whoever that guy was, like, you went through that one, you're like, nailed it.
Yep.
You almost have the sense like that's someone who understands it and got his fragments of this thing in this pub.
Yep.
Whereas the other guy who doesn't understand it got his fragments in, and when you put them side, like, yep, nope.
It's what you were talking about, being on paper versus being on target, right? And this has happened to us at Echelon Front, where we get a leader, we go and work with the leadership team, and they take a principle, and we check in with them. 3 weeks later, we'll go back there, and you can see this one person, they're on paper, but man, they're not hitting the mark. And, for them, extreme ownership meant I'm going to dictate everything that's happening here. Or decentralized command meant I can go to the Bahamas for the next 2 weeks on vacation because I'm going to let my team. So they take it and interpret it the wrong way.
Yeah.
So this stuff, there's probably just like shooting. Like there's a chance, I take Dave and get you dialed in at 300 yards on your rifle. You're going to do pretty good. If I take a group of 100 people and do that, how many have some people that aren't going to be hitting paper?
Yep.
And so that's what we have to watch out for. And that's, what's interesting about working at Echelon Front, like, because we do this all the time, like we know, and we also have the ability to go, oh, yep, this person's going to be a little bit off target. Hey, 2 clicks to the right, 1 click down. We're going to get you dialed in bullseye on this stuff. And even that can be hard. There's some people, they're pray and spray. Some people have the vision of, finally Jocko's going to come to my company and get everyone in line.
It's like everyone, yeah.
It's like, no, it's not quite going to go like that. So when I read all these things, keeping an open mind about what you're reading, what you're interpreting, about what you're understanding, thinking that, even when someone presents me tomorrow afternoon, I'm working with a company and someone says, hey, Jocko, I don't think cover and move works. I don't think to myself, hey, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I know it. No, I go, well, talk to me about why not. What is the situation? So keeping an open mind and not thinking that you know everything is extremely important. And even dictating, right? That's I think one thing that sat a little bit wrong about this book for both of us is there's a lot of dictating the way things are with no outs, with no deviations. And that's always problematic. It's always problematic to paint yourself into a corner. It's always problematic to carve things into stone.
Yeah.
There should be some things carved in stone, very few. The things that you carve in stone, there should be very, very few. And even when you carve them into stone, you should be able to move that rock around a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's an awesome metaphor. And then the other word that certainly triggered a response in me is the concept of control. How this is about controlling, and we both, that word, were like, wow, that. But even conceptually, like if you in your mind think this is a tool or technique to control people, your interpretation is going to be wrong, because even the outcome that you're trying to achieve, or even what leadership really is, you've got, and you talk about different perspectives. If the perspective is this is a tool to control other people, you've got this wrong.
Yeah. And
that was the other word that really hit me. Like, man, that is not what we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah. If you're like throwing out, hey, if you got to be authoritarian, there's a time and a place. Hey, and you know what? Is there? Yeah, sure. There's a time and a place. There's a time when there's an emergency going on. People don't know what's happening, and you got to get up and be like, hey, everyone, be quiet. We're moving over to this thing. That happens. But it shouldn't be happening a lot. Yeah. So there you go. Leadership, lessons learned. Thank you, Marine Corps. Marine Corps, you're my people. So I know you're with me now. we had to dispel some stuff in this one. Appreciate it. What else? What else we got, Echo? We're getting smarter.
We are.
We're keeping an open mind.
We are. We are trying to, yes.
So we're on the path.
We'll avoid keeping in a closed mind. I'll tell you that.
Definitely a good thing.
Doing our best to avoid that. Yes. So, we're on this improvement path, growth path. And we need supplementation sometimes. So Jocko has supplements. That's what we're going to talk about first. So additional protein in the form of a dessert. Short description. Yeah. See what I'm saying? It's called milk.
You did it.
Yep.
It's its own thing.
Yep, it is. Also energy drinks, but they're not regular energy drinks. They're good energy drinks. Boom. Called Go. That's going to help us on our mental and physical path as well.
Yep.
Creatine, speaking of physical, bringing it back. Studied, proven for improved performance, results, gains, all that.
Oh, gains.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Actually, I only had a small stint of creatine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was, I guess, not so coincidentally the strongest I've ever been, though, in the weight room.
See?
Yeah.
There you go. Scientifically proven and bro-scientifically proven.
Yeah, I just never was that into supplements.
Yeah.
And then, maybe I should have been. I don't know. But I got some creatine now, though.
Got caught up now.
So we're back in the game, yeah. Also, what else? We got joint health, keep your joints. So pretty much everything for every supplement for pretty much any part of our path.
We got you.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention some new stuff coming out. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to pop the hype bubble on the new thing.
Yeah,
but there's some new.
Keep the hype bubble.
Some new hype.
There you go. JockoFuel.com. Get it at Wawa, Vitamin Shop. Meyer, Murphy's, HEB, military commissaries, it's in there. Hannaford in there. So a bunch of different places. Circle K down in Florida. JockoFuel.com. If you need to order it. Get stronger. Get smarter.
Oh, yeah.
Get healthier. Get better.
Yeah, those Mulk RTDs are like...
Yeah.
And you don't really understand like how good they are until you really have them, because they're only good on paper. Yeah, it's funny you guys were using the expression "on paper," because what on paper usually means like it makes sense if you on paper do the equation on paper, but in real life
on paper,
real life is, or in the field or whatever is different or whatever. Yeah. So that's what I mean by this one. But so on paper you're like, okay, yeah, cool, RTD. You don't got to mix it up or whatever, but that element of it is a big deal when you really have them. Bro, I'm just sucking them down.
Yeah, it's a little too easy, right?
Yeah, like you're like drinking like 4 of them.
Yeah,
in a day.
120.
Sometimes 5.
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say 120 grams of
Oh yeah, the protein. Yeah, 30 grams each.
Yep. Yeah. JockoFuel.com, OriginUSA.com. Get your geese. Get your American-made jeans. Jeans are American. 100%. Jeans are American. And you might think you're buying some iconic American jeans that got made by a slave laborer in a foreign country, in a unhealthy environment, in a dangerous environment. So don't do that. Get yourself an American-made stuff. OriginUSA.com. Jeans, geese, boots. Support America. Support yourself. There you go.
Would you guys ever do bell bottoms? Like a throwback to the 70s? Jeans.
I don't think so.
Did you wear bell bottoms?
No, I'm a man.
Whatever, brother. Disco.
Actually, you know when I wore bell bottoms? In the Navy. In the Navy,
oh, well, when
I went to boot camp, you had to wear these things called dungarees. They don't wear them anymore, and they were bell bottoms. They were, bro. It was so lame. It was the lamest uniform ever.
Okay, so you weren't down with.
We called them Dunger Jams because they called them dungarees in the Navy. But we called them Dunger Jams and Buds, and you were so happy to get out of those things. But you remember Higgs, Jeff Higgs. Yeah. So he got dropped from training, and they took away his Buds uniform. And they put him back in his Dunger Jams, and they dropped him, and he was not leaving, and he would just show up to PT, like the class would come out, and he'd go with them, and the instructors were like, "Dude, you can't be out here," and he would just like ignore him, and then they would like escort him out of there, and then they'd be like, "Dude, you can't be here," like you.
Wait, and he had his Dunger Jams on.
Yep.
Is what you're saying?
Just like, dude, I'm staying with the class, whatever, fools, and they dropped him and then finally, like, he just stuck with it. He just was not quitting. And then finally, they're like, all right, dude, this guy's a badass. We need to keep him. And they did, you know? Jeffrey. They would get him away from the class, and then they'd send him to, lock him in a room somewhere, and he'd, like, break out, and then he'd get back on. He was just freaking not quitting. Jeffrey.
For the cause with the Dunger Jams.
Yep.
All right, so no bell bottoms. Okay, I understand.
That may be the first time I think I've ever try to answer a question for Jocko. I was looking at him shaking my head no. Usually I just sit here and listen. But he said bell bottoms. I look at you. I'm shaking my head no before you say no. I don't think I've ever done that before. But one just I'm like, no. That's not happening.
Put it this way, I was not surprised with your answer. But sometimes you just never know.
Honestly, the enlisted Navy uniform, dress uniform, those are bell bottoms too. I think they are, right? When those be classified?
And I know what you're talking about. And that's not what he's
like
talking
the Cracker Jack uniform. You know what that is?
Yeah.
It's like the dress blues for a Navy enlisted guy below the rank of E6 and below. Like you look like a Cracker Jack box. You look like a stereotypical sailor, right?
Yeah.
With the Dixie cup hat, they call it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Is that the white with the blue and the deal?
Yeah.
The flared out pants.
Yeah, the flared up, kind of bell bottomish.
Yeah, bell bottomy for sure. Yeah, no, I was thinking like more disco days. So here's the thing. So Jocko, you was born early 70s, right? So when you were growing,
I might have just rolled deep.
Maybe, because look, think about.
I was like 4.
I don't know.
Getting after it.
9. I don't know. 79, right?
Maybe we have to inspect like old pictures and see if I ever had any rolled bell bottoms.
That's part of my point. Because right now, if I'm like, hey, Jocko, like hairstyles and all this, on your hairstyles, hair is only to look good. So whatever, I'm here to win. What was the speech you gave? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Well, let's bring up some old photos of that.
Yeah, old Jocko. JKO rolling deep. We had some shit going on.
Suave. When they say suave, right? When someone looks suave, you see what I'm saying? That was Jocko's look in some of those pictures. You see what I'm saying? Look, the point is, I was not surprised with this answer, but you just never know.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So no bell bottoms in the pipe.
Hunt gear though. Can we talk about cool stuff? All right, OriginUSA.com, JockoStore.com.
Yep.
JockoStore.com.
You want to represent?
We don't have bell bottoms there.
No.
And we're not gonna.
No. Negative. Shirts, hats, hoodies for sure. Yeah, lightweight hoodies even.
For which you are representing in.
Oh yeah, big time press. Perfect. See, I know you're from New England or whatever, and you're like, no, either you hoodie, no hoodie, which I understand, but there's nuance to weather and requirements.
There you go. Lightweight hoodies from JockoStore.com.
Discipline equals freedom. Represent.
That's what you're wearing right now.
Get it. It's true. Also, Short Locker subscription. Cool designs on that one. New design every month. Boom, boom. Yeah, people have been pretty happy about that one. Some good feedback. But check it out.
Any bell bottoms coming on?
No bell bottoms, no idea. I'm gonna be honest. I never was really into the bell bottoms look. You know how people go retro and they kind of do that. That's their jam. Never was. I never could understand it. Here's the thing. The closest thing I got was boot cut. You know what boot cut means?
Goes around boots.
Yeah, I guess that is what it's wide enough to go around the boot.
Yeah.
That's what okay.
One of my friends was like a rocker, like a rock and roll dude.
Hell yeah.
It's Pete. His name is Pete. English Pizza. And I saw a picture of him. Do you know English Peter? Yeah, you've been around English Peter. Mm-hmm. But he did sound when we did that recording.
Yes, sir.
But he like I saw a picture of him in like 86, and he was like full on rock and roll. He had bell bottoms on, bro. Like he was ready to, like he looked like a rock star, like straight up. You know what I mean? So there you go. English Pizza Night.
But yeah, JockoStore.com. Check it out if you like something.
Yep.
Get something.
Subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to Jocko Underground. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get your flipsidecanvas.com. Get your psychological warfare. Get it. I've written a bunch of books. Got a bunch of books. Check out those books. JockoPublishing.com. WarriorKid.com. Get your kids. Go to Amazon and get these books. So, got a bunch of books. Check them out. Echelon Front Leadership Consultancy, if you want to talk about these leadership things that we talked about today and you want to get the correct interpretation of these things, we will come work with your company. We'll do it virtually. We'll do it live, whatever it takes to get the job done. EchelonFront.com. Also, we have ExtremeOwnership.com, which is an online training. So we don't have to send you a book, a correspondence book. You can come online. You can do live events with us. We're on there live every week, answering questions. There's courses to take. It's just awesome. We just redid the entire website, have a brand new platform. It's outstanding. So ExtremeOwnership.com. Anything else on that, Dave?
It's awesome. And I love how you said like the correct interpretation. That's where you find it.
If you want the correct interpretation of leadership,
that's what you want.
There it is.
That's where you get it.
Yep. And if you want to help service members, active and retired, their families, Gold Star families, check out Mark Lee's mom, Mama Lee. She's got a charity organization. If you want to help out or you want to donate, go to americasmightywarriors.org. And also don't forget about Micah Fink and heroesandhorses.org. And if you want to connect with us on the interwebs, on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, then you can go to David R. Berke or Echo Charles or Jocko Willink. Just watch out for the algorithm because it'll grab you. And thanks to all of our military leaders at every level from E1 to O10 in leadership positions around the globe. Thank you for keeping us safe and leading from the front. And the same goes for all the police and law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, dispatchers, correctional officers, Border Patrol, Secret Service, and all first responders. Thank you for keeping us safe with your leadership here on the home front. And to everyone else out there, one of the traits of a leader spelled out in this Marine Corps manual was courage. And it talked about physical courage, and it talked about moral courage, and it talked about the mental control of fear. And the book gave some recommendations on how to be courageous. But the first recommendation that it gave was place duty over your personal feelings or desires. Place duty over your own personal feelings or desires. And that's it. And I think we can bring that down to a personal daily level. Duty means do what you're supposed to do. That's how we build courage. By ignoring how you feel and ignoring what you desire, and by doing what you are supposed to do. Which means we need to get out there and get after it. And until next time, this is Dave and Echo and Jocko. Out.